Third time's a charm. Good morning. Hi. Hey, that's what I'm talking. Yes. I'm going to stand back. Wow, this is a very good microphone. Hi, my name is Jeremy Chase. I'm with Love Communications, and it is an honor to be a sponsor of this morning's Tourism Hall of Fame breakfast. It is also an honor to work with many of you in this room as clients and as partners, and we are grateful for those relationships. So thanks to all of you. Yeah, hey. And now a question, very serious question. Have you ever used a snackable content hub for actionable influencers for your stakeholders? Have you uncovered pain points to be game changer synergies for paradigm shifts for your team? Yes? Well, if you have, that means you're using buzzwords. Buzzwords, not a good thing. Buzzwords, like jargon, create shortcuts that people don't even understand what you're saying. But that's okay. It really is. You know why? Because we all do it. But today, we're going to try to eliminate those, at least for today if we can. And I'm here to help. So, I know that most of you are well versed in the game of bingo. Is that right? How many played bingo last night? Good. Good. I love it when a plan comes together, is what the A-team said. And this one is coming together. So we're going to play our own version of bingo, but this one is called Buzzword Bingo, okay? What we're going to do is we're going to play 3 quick rounds of Buzzword Bingo. Each of you has a sheet at your table, so please get a pencil or a pen to keep track, okay? We're going to play 3 rounds, and there will be 3 winners for each round through the help of my Buzzword Bingo enforcer, Travis Tyrannosaurus. Travis, are you ready? Good. Are we all ready to play some Buzzword Bingo? Oh, goodness gracious me. Are we ready to play some Buzzword Bingo? Okay, very, very good. Now, please listen to me. Please listen very closely, or else you'll miss the buzzwords and your opportunity to win. Round 1. When we unpack the ideation of newsjacking, we uncover the social proof to circle back to our key audiences. Okay, top 3 winners. Travis Tyrannosaurus, distribute. Very good. Okay, round 2. Oh, you don't? Well, there should be some additional papers around here somewhere. Okay, everyone gets a chance to play. Yes, Anna, are you all right over back there? You good? Okay.
It's first 3.
First 3, and it's up to Travis Tyrannosaurus. Yes. Okay, round 2, are we ready? Okay. To be disruptive with a content hub to create enormous, ginormous digital footprints, we can then have consumer personas. How are we looking, Travis? And lastly, round 3. Round 3, our final round. Are you ready? And remember the ways we can win at bingo, right? It's 5 in a row or a complete coverall, right? Okay, round 3. So, when you drill down with a marketing funnel to your content hub for actionable influencers, it's disruptive insights to unpack data-driven newsjacking for game-changer ideation, for personas and pain points, for social proof in a mobile-first environment, when we have to pivot for customer journeys to create synergy to circle back for snackable content and digital footprint alignment for an ultimate paradigm shift. All right. Thank you for paying attention. Thank you for eliminating buzzwords and jargon from your day-to-day language. That's what we try to do at Love Communications. But enough of me talking. Let's go to the video, please. All right. Okay, thank you. Thank you. And now it is my honor to introduce a very good friend of mine and a very good member of the Utah Office of Tourism Board, Mr. Lance Syrett, to get things started for our Hall of Fame breakfast. Come on up, Lance.
Thanks, Jeremy. I appreciate it. As I say, I think I'm going to have to hold that up. I'm not as tall as Breck, but I'm a pretty tall guy. So anyway, it's a pleasure to be with you here this morning, and it's a pleasure to be here in Vernal. It's always a good time, and you know, appreciate our host, Leisha, wherever she is. And you know, it's I guess I get to get this thing started. I'm pretty nervous. You know, I don't get nervous, but I'm nervous to do this because this is a big deal. It's a big deal to me, and it's been a long time coming. And so I'll tell you this: when I met this guy, I had a dang good head of hair, and he did too. That's how long we've known each other. And I'll tell you, it's it's not too good up on the top of my head anymore. But Rick Ma is one of the founders of Utah.com, and I mean, Utah.com, when you say that name, it means something. It's a legacy for the tourism community in the state that's unrivaled in its impact on the different hotels and operators and guides and outfitters and all of the tourism-based economy. Just a little bit about Rick. As I say, Rick's been out of the industry a few years. Anybody doesn't know, they sold DDM. Was that about 10 years ago when you sold Utah.com? It's about 10 years ago, right? So little turnover in the tourism community. And if you're old, you know, I'm kind of on the cusp of being old. I see a few gray hairs out in the room, and I know that Rick knows you and you know Rick. It says in the early 90s, Rick and his partners, Mike Donahue and Rick Farr, had the idea of getting Utah on the World Wide Web. They scanned in pictures and entered text from a printed guide and presented the first Utah website to Dean Reeder, the director of the Utah Travel Council. Mr. Reeder's first words were, "What is the internet? And how do people get there?" So this is the Wild West, right? This was the beginning of Utah.com and the electronic publishing partnership with the state of Utah. Rick and his colleagues worked feverishly with every travel-related service in Utah to create a website with everything to see and do and everywhere to eat and sleep in Utah. Rick says the best part of Utah.com was working with so many people throughout the state with a vision to increase tourism to the state of Utah. Rick is a native of Utah, growing up in the Mill Creek area of the state. He has a bachelor's degree in computer science from the U of U and an MBA from BYU. And you can tell I wore my blue shirt and my red tie because I'm not sure who he cheers for. Actually, I do know, but I did wear my blue and my red. Rick and his wife, Nina, and their 7 children have traveled to every corner of Utah, exploring and discovering everything to see and do. Don't be surprised if you run into them one day under Delicate Arch or skiing Empire Peak at Deer Valley or water skiing at Lake Powell. Utah is still in Rick's blood. Without any further delay, I'd like to introduce my friend, Rick Ma, the newest inductee to the Utah Tourism Hall of Fame.
Wow. Thank you. You know, I was just chatting with Lance before this started. When we started Utah.com, Lance was 15. And he did have hair then. Worked closely with his uncle, Bob Syrett. They were big supporters of Utah.com with a number of other people. The other thing that was kind of interesting, thank you for sharing how it kind of started there, Lance. not only was there no Utah website, but when we started to go out into the industry, which is all of you, none of you had websites. Your predecessors did not have a website. So we had to work building all the websites for the industry so that we had something to link to off of utah.com. You know, a few years ago, well, quite a few years ago, my partner right here, Ryan Kirby, I think between the two of us, we knew every one of you, or at least your predecessors, we knew everybody in this tourism industry. And we view all of you as friends, partners. Utah.com would not exist without all of you. And we have just loved those relationships. I think today, being honored with, can I announce that it's on all the tables, Maria and Mark, what an honor. These are good friends for a long time and good people, and glad that I'm here today with you and get to see you. I don't have a whole lot more to say. I guess I'd just share one thing that is kind of interesting. When we started this whole Utah.com, we thought it was so cool that we could put a picture on the website, and we put a picture of the governor, and we had a link that said, click here to listen to a message from Governor Leavitt. And you're wondering, who's Governor Leavitt? Well, he was the governor of Utah 30 years ago. But you could click on that and you could listen and hear his voice. And today, still, I don't think anyone even knows what the internet is. They just use it every day on their phone, but you watch videos and it's unbelievable. But we thought it was pretty cool back then to just hear a voice. So thank you all, appreciate this. What an honor for all of us at Utah.com. There were a lot of great people that I worked with there, love them all. And fun to have a family here. Got a few of my kids, 3 out of my 7. But we love Utah. And yeah, look for us. We're going to be all over the state still. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm super excited to get to do this because Maria is somebody that I've looked up to both professionally and personally for a long time. I've plagiarized a lot of her ideas, so she's a very super smart and talented lady. When I was first nominating Maria, I reached out to a lot of her local stakeholders and her employees and business and community leaders, and some of the words that they described Maria were a leader, a visionary, very passionate, and loyal. Maria was born in Cedar City, Utah, and spent most of her childhood summers living at the Duck Creek Ranger Station, where her father was a law enforcement officer at the Dixie National Forest. Maria credits those summers of riding motorcycles with her mom, building forts, and hiking around Navajo Lake to giving her a lifetime love of the outdoors. During her middle school and early high school years, Maria was a junior apprentice dancer for the American Folk Ballet, which I didn't know, and I'm hoping you're gonna give us a little ballet show when you get up here. She graduated from SUU with a bachelor's degree in communications and marketing in 1995. Following graduation, she held various tourism office positions and was promoted to the executive director of Visit Cedar City Bryan Head in 2005. Maria loves working in the tourism industry and feels she is truly living the dream because she can pursue her love of hiking, skiing, history, theater, food, and photography in her career development. She loves going on adventures with her women in tourism pals, Maria serves on many local and state tourism boards, including the Utah Main Street Board, and is a past president of the Utah Tourism Industry Association. Maria, along with 39 of her female peers, also co-penned the book 40 Rules for Women in Their 40s. Also something I didn't know. Maria is married to Jimmy, and they're the proud parents of a daughter, Amanda, and love going on adventures with their 2 dogs. Maria and Jimmy recently purchased her childhood home because she is a glutton for punishment and is in the process of restoring this 1917 bungalow to its original glory. So, Maria, come on up.
Wow, thank you. I'm going to start crying, I know it, because I'm an emotional person, you know. Thank you, Fallon, for this amazing nomination. I am so honored and humbled that, because there's just so many people in this room who deserve to be, you know, inducted into the Tourism Hall of Fame, and I can't imagine that somebody would go to so much effort to honor me. I hope you'll bear with me for a minute, but I want to thank some people, you know, because it takes like Alicia said yesterday, it takes a village, and you're only as good as the people you surround yourself with. So I want to express my appreciation to my family. They couldn't make it today, but my family's small, but we're mighty. So, and they've been so supportive of me. But I also have my work family, and I was just so honored. My assistant, Amber Bennett, is here today. She's been with me since almost the beginning, and she is my family. And Becky Lewis, who's been with me for 12 years, has been an incredible mentor to me, and she's here today as well. But I want to, you know, express my love for my team, Kaylee, Wyatt, Stephanie, Andy, and a really grumpy maintenance tech by the name of Bryce. I'm not okay. I don't know. I'm having some hard times with my face on the table. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I feel like my eyes have been following you for the last 2 days, so thank you for putting up with me with that. It was kind of it feels weird. I want to thank the Trailblazers who have really made an effort here in Utah. I started 28 years ago, and the tourism office for the state of Utah had like a budget of like less than $1 million. And we weren't exactly part of the economic development. We weren't at the table. Nobody really knew what our impact was. And so it's really taken some amazing trailblazers to kind of bring tourism to the forefront. And so I just want to express my appreciation to Vicki Varela, UTIA directors, Nan Anderson, and Caitlin Eskelson, and now the great Natalie Randall. You're amazing. I also want to give a shout out to my UTIA president and past president, Sarah Tolliver and Joan Hammer. You led us through one of the most difficult times I've ever seen in our industry, and you did it with grace and just tenacity. It was kind of it was an odd time for sure, and it helped me see what real leadership was. And you're amazing ladies, and Joan, you've been my meeting BFF for many, many years, and I just thank you for giving me that space where I could send some snarky remarks and eye roll emojis in many of our meetings. So thank you for that. I want to also just say thank you to my women in tourism peeps. You are so amazing to me. You are my support, you are my rock, and I'm so grateful to you all. You've taught me a lot. So Nan and Elizabeth, you're the mother hen of tourism. You make everybody feel wonderful. Nan has made sure I was on every committee in the state of Utah that I could possibly be on, and I'm just so appreciative of that and for what she's done for my career. Pat, Mo Bailey, Kim, you're all just wonderful people, and I really appreciate what you've done for me. I just want to conclude with this. We work in the most amazing industry. We get to do so many amazing things. We get to work and live in the beautiful state of Utah. We get to tell people what is so wonderful about Utah, and we bring the world to our state. We get to work with amazing, supportive, creative, innovative people. And my favorite is we get to tell people where to go and how to get there in the most special way. But I hope that you will don't take what we do here for granted. Appreciate what we do and what we're doing every day. If the pandemic taught us anything, that our industry is fragile, and yet we were able to get through during a very, very difficult time because of who we are here in the state of Utah. And we're now, we're a major part of this economy, and we were the leader as we got through the pandemic. And I know that things are a little uneasy, but I'm very confident that we will be, again, the leaders through all of what's happening. So thank you. I appreciate everything. I love this room. I love everyone here. Thank you.
Honestly, I really wanted to make a video for this, so I didn't have to be overwhelmed with emotion, because I feel the weight of a whole community and the gratitude towards Mark. I stood up yesterday, had some fun. I said we play a game in our house, cool, not cool, right? And with the kids, we make a video. We say cool, not cool. So I did this with the kids. I said, when you think of Mark Wilson, is it cool, not cool, right? And we're talking about kids, and Mark's not as young as he once was. But my kids are like, Mark is cool, right? They love Mark. So I'm going to tell a little bit about Mark, and then I'm going to speak a little more personal about Mark. So Mark arrived in Utah in 1980 after getting reluctant permission from his mother to go west to ski for 1 year, to ski powder. We all know how that goes. That turned into an 11-year career at Solitude Ski Resort, ending as the VP of Base Area Operations and Marketing. During that time, he represented the Cottonwood Canyon Ski Resorts in the Wasatch Canyon Master Planning, Park and Ride Lot Development, and Ski Utah Marketing. In 1991, Mark was hired as a consultant to find a small family resort. And after searching the Uinta Mountains, he discovered, I don't know why I'm emotional on this part, but Red Canyon Lodge in Flaming Gorge. In 1991, they opened the lodge that was currently closed and began guest cabin development, and that is complemented by the highly scenic setting. He eventually bought out his family partners and achieved his goal of creating a successful resort destination. Along the way, Mark became intimately involved with the community organizations and Northeastern Utah tourism. He chaired the former Tri-County Dinosaur Land Travel Board for 7 years, and upon its demise, he reimagined the role of the local Chamber of Commerce to build the brand of Flaming Gorge. He dedicated his work on destination tourism, and scenic byway development that spans the gorge and on both the Utah and Wyoming sides. Fortunately for us, his mother eventually felt pretty good about his Western adventure and forgave him, and let him stay longer. So I kind of have a mind of a creative, at least I like to think of myself as a creative, and it scatters all over. So when I was asked to introduce Mark, the first thought that came to my mind is Mark's spot. So just up from Little Hole on the Green River, Mark walks up to the spot when the bloomings are out, and he fishes every afternoon. And so that's one of my first memories of Mark, which this is gonna sound weird, but immediately brought me to fishing, in which I can cast with either hand. And I always would make the joke from an old basketball player from NC State that someone asked him, hey, you can shoot with right or left hand? And he's like, yeah, I'm pretty good, I'm amphibious. And so I've made that joke in my boat a lot of times, and non-basketball fans have no idea what I'm talking about. But in my scattered brainness, that led me to the NC State coach, Jim Valvano, who once said, the greatest gift my dad ever gave me was that he believed in me. Mark believed in me, but not just me. He believed in up-and-coming arts, singer-songwriters that he loves to play to his place. He believed in the rodeo community. Mark put together the Cow Country Rodeo in Daggett County for more years than I can remember. He embraced the ranching and rodeo community along with tourism, and a gap that has always been hard to bridge. And we continue to try to bridge that gap. Mark also is at the school being a judge for the science fair. Like, any little thing in the community that could possibly be done, Mark is there to support it. And I think that caring of every individual is what made Mark great and is what really makes him a Hall of Famer. So lastly, one of the other games we play in our house all the time is we do a lot of improv. And so I'm going to pretend to be the community of Flaming Gorge, and I'm not going to sing, even though I'd love to, but we're not going to today. But of course, like any chubby fly fisherman in his middle ages, I immediately thought of the Broadway play Wicked. And Kristen Chenoweth and Idina Menzel, when it was sung, I've heard it said that people come into our lives for a reason, bringing something we must learn, and we are led to those who help us most to grow, and if we let them, or help them in return, well, I don't know if I believe that's true, but I know Flaming Gorge is today because we met you. So with that, I want to introduce and bring to the Hall of Fame Mark Wilson.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I have this whole speech because those who know me, you know I'm naturally gabby, but Ryan Kelly just said a lot of it, so I can be brief, and I won't get in trouble with Natalie. Maria was mentioning the pictures that have been staring at all three of us this whole conference, and it's weird. But the thing I noticed is Rick was in a suit and tie. Look at the picture. Rick was in a suit and tie, and my mom's going to see these pictures. And so everyone, I live in fishing shirts. So I'm wearing a jacket. Rick, you messed me up. But Mom will be happy. And it's true. I grew up in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia. And when I graduated college, I just grew up with a passion for the West, and I was headed west. It's funny what Governor Cox said yesterday, because I was headed to Colorado for 1 year to ski powder. And I had one friend out here in Utah, and we didn't grow up knowing about Utah. But he said, you got to come out. You got to come out. This is where the great skiing is. And so I had 1 year, and then I was supposed to go home and get a real job. And I got a job at Solitude, not expecting one, the first day I arrived in Utah. So I stayed, and then I took off and I discovered southern Utah. And I've been telling Natalie, I mean, I fell in love with it. And I quit answering the phone calls from my mom, and I stayed out a little bit longer. And it did turn into an 11-year career at Solitude Ski Resort. And I just had the privilege of working with so many ski industry legends, from Craig Badami to Dick Bass to Ano, Mike Gore, and our own Raylene Davis. She's here somewhere. And they were exciting times, and we got to do a lot of things. Solitude created a Nordic Center. All of us joined together, and we built those park and ride lots at the bottom of the canyons, trying to answer those early days of issues. And I helped Solitude. The most fun was I helped Solitude, who had a long-held dream of changing from a day ski area to a destination ski resort. And so it was really fun to work on the groundwork of creating that village there and helping them achieve that dream. And I had more than my fair share of face plants in the greatest snow on earth, and I always loved that. So then 30 years ago, I had started fishing out in this area, and I would go back to this ski area and tell folks how incredible Flaming Gorge was. The wildlife, the scenery, the fishing. And when I was hired by a family to find a small lodge for them, I kept going around the Uinta Mountains. I spent 6 months, and I found this sweet little spot. And it was run down, and it had not been open for years. So I talked the family into, this is the spot, Red Canyon Lodge, this is the spot. And I didn't want to leave, so I didn't have them pay me, and I said, I'm just going to help you, and we're going to build log cabins, and we're just going to make it, we're going to complement that scenic setting in just a beautiful area. So that's been an affair of the heart, and it's kept me out here. It's kept me in Utah tourism. As he said, the Dinosaur Land Travel Board was one of the state's original travel regions. They're long gone, but it was a joy to work all of northeastern Utah. And when those broke up into what's today a lot of individual counties, we started our own DMO in Flaming Gorge. Where did Ryan go? Ryan was an integral part of that. It's been a joy to work with him. And I've just had a pleasure of meeting all the great people in Utah, and they're very talented. It's an honor to work with all of you, and with the new folks that are coming on board. They only give this to the old, except for Maria, the old folks around. Yeah. So it's been a great 40-year adventure here in Utah, and it's not over. But I'd like to thank the folks that make this happen, Vicki and David, and the consistently really amazing boards and staff at the Office of Tourism and UTIA, and the former directors and old friends. Nan showed up today. So all along this way, I mean, I didn't think anybody was paying attention to me. So I'm surprised, and I'm very humbled to be inducted into the Tourism Hall of Fame. It's really the best thank you that Utah could ever give me. So thank you.
in a really not cheesy way, I just have to acknowledge all the love in this room. And as each one of those folks got up, it was incredibly heartfelt and reminded me of what amazing people that we have in our industry. The awards that they received were made by a brilliant artist. So they're not just awards, they're pieces of art. And we were grateful to the artists who produced them. We are super grateful to our amazing partners at Root Res. And Mark, where are you? Mark's not just a great partner, but he sits on our tourism conference committee. And so thanks to Root Res and to Mark for our awards. And Adam, you're up.
Hi, everybody. That was louder than I expected. I have the opportunity to go to tourism conferences all over the country, and here in Utah, we put on a pretty darn good event. It's really been powerful to watch the connections, relationships, and just the amazing event that Natalie and everybody involved has put on here. So thank you for everybody for your passion for the industry. It's always fun to be here at Utah Tourism Conference. I wanted to just talk about a couple of things that I'm seeing in the industry as we go out across the country, and one of the shifts that I feel like is happening. In 2019, we started a podcast called the Destination Marketing Podcast, and it's kind of evolved into something we never expected, including the only podcast network in the tourism industry. And I want to talk a little bit about some of the things that we're seeing. Any good marketer should be nurturing 3 different types of media. The first one would be earned media. All of you are familiar with that. It's public relations efforts. It's getting someone else to tell your story, right? The second that I also think we do a really good job of in the industry, like earned media, is paid media. We purchase access to audiences that others have built. And obviously, we've got a lot of great examples of publishers here in this room that we buy media from. The one that I want to talk a little bit about is where we are seeing a lot of change in the industry, and that's the value and power of owned media. And we've been fortunate enough to be on the forefront of pioneering podcasting specifically for tourism destinations and organizations in the industry. Some of the owned media channels that some of you may or may not be thinking about: email marketing automation, podcasts, website content, obviously your social media channels, and of course, if you're using text message marketing, that's another example of an owned medium that you can nurture. Some of the benefits of owning your own media: first of all, when you're purchasing access to someone else's audience, they have control over the medium. You can't do it yourself. You can't tell the story in the way you want to tell it. There's parameters of some sort within which you have to operate. You get to control the narrative if you're doing it on your own media channel, and the value of owned audiences is increasing over time. And then the best part of nurturing your owned media is you can create a multi-touch ecosystem. And I may or may not have used one of the buzzwords that Love Communications talked about earlier here. But the ability to have your different owned media channels work together to nurture and build your own audience. So that's a trend that we're seeing that we feel like every organization in the tourism industry needs to be thinking about, is are you creating and nurturing your owned media channels? I want to give you an example of some of the stuff that we're working on in the industry in the owned media category, working with destinations all over the country and some really awesome destinations here, even in this room, to build owned media channels. And if any of you haven't thought about creating that for your organization, never too late to start. If you have any questions, talk to me or JP, our Business Development Director. We've got a booth out here and would love to chat with anybody that's interested in talking about the future of your owned media channels. And that's it for me, but I wanted to introduce our next speaker. Really grateful for the opportunity to do so. Melissa Milton serves as the Director of State and Local Government Affairs for the American Hotel and Lodging Association, the nation's largest hotel association. In this capacity, Melissa is the primary liaison with state policymakers, governors, and other government officials in the Intermountain West, and works to advance policies that benefit the hotel and lodging industry and its employees. Before joining AHLA, Melissa led Western State Government Affairs for Western Governors University, the largest nonprofit online university in the U.S. Before Western Governors University, Melissa worked in federal and public relations for the Association of American Universities in Washington, D.C., focusing primarily on student financial aid and campus climate issues. A Florida native, Melissa began her career in Tallahassee, first working for a state senator and later at the Associated Industries of Florida, the state's premier business advocacy association. Melissa lives in Denver with her husband Chris and their dog Lucy. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Melissa Milton with an AHLA update.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the introduction. I appreciate it. So let me make sure this works. Okay. So AHLA is the largest hotel association in the country. We represent all segments of the industry nationwide. Our goals as an association are to support policies that promote and protect our guests and improve the guest experience, to lead to job growth and job creation, and to empower employers to foster employee training and career advancement in the hospitality industry. Almost every state association, including here in Utah, has an association that represents the lodging industry. Some states it's lodging and restaurants, some states it is hospitality, including restaurants, lodging, and the tourism industry as a whole, like here in Utah. Partner state associations can take advantage of all AHLA programs and services. My role is to work with state association CEOs like Natalie here to support their advocacy agendas, both here in the state and then their foundation initiatives as well. Our CEO, Chip Rogers, who's a former Senate Majority Leader from the state of Georgia, hosts promotion-type events throughout the country as well to highlight hospitality careers and the economic impact that the industry has within the local communities and within the state. In addition, I want to flag that we have a foundation, and we have these three core pillars within the foundation. One is workforce development and scholarship programs. Two, we have a no room for trafficking program. We really focus on human trafficking awareness and education, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. Recently, the AHLA Foundation awarded $1 million in hospitality scholarships to 300 students across the country this year for the upcoming academic year. To date, I believe we've awarded about $16 million in scholarships to students across the country. And then really our most popular program is the No Room for Trafficking campaign. We do events throughout the country. Most recently, we did have an event with Utah Attorney General Sean Reyes in Colorado, where we did a free training and certification program. So if any of you are interested in that program and how you can do that with your employees, please reach out to me. To date, over 500,000 hotel employees have been trained through the free trafficking awareness program. It's very, very interesting. And it's developed in partnership with ECPAT, which is basically the global leader in human trafficking prevention and awareness. So on to the state of the industry. So if you're interested, please feel free to use that QR code for a full report. But essentially the top lines are, all indications are that the hotel industry is continuing toward a recovery, but we're still several years out from a full recovery from COVID-19. According to an analysis that we did at AHLA with Oxford Economics, hotel room night demand and revenue are projected to return almost to 2019 levels. Room revenues are projected to reach $188 billion, which is within 1% of 2019 levels. and we had an increase of 19% over 2021. Occupancy is projected to hit 63.4%, nearing the 66% rate achieved in 2019, and far above the 44% and 57% reached in 2020 and 2021, respectively. By the end of 2022, hotels are expected to employ nearly 2.2 million people, about 93% of the pre-pandemic levels. And that is down about 7% compared to 2019, just to give you perspective. So here in Utah, just to give you some sense, and this may be old news for all of you, but hotel guests spend about $4 billion in Utah. We have about 611 properties throughout the state, totaling about 52,000 hotel rooms, more than 72,000 jobs, resulting in about $3 billion in wages and salaries for Utah families. Natalie asked me to spend a little bit of time before heading into the federal update, kind of what we're seeing macro in the West. And I doubt I need to tell anyone in this room that water continues to be a big issue. Of particular concern are all the states within the Colorado River Basin. This year, the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation has ordered some mandatory cuts after there was no agreement between the river basin states. So Arizona will lose 21% of its annual river supply from the Colorado River Basin. Nevada will have to go without 8% of its annual supply. Mexico, interestingly enough, is losing about 7%. And there are no other further cuts for U.S. states, but we suspect that there will be more absent some sort of an agreement between those states. In addition, I want to flag for you that across a lot of city councils, as well as state legislatures, there's been an intense focus on a lot of ESG issues, environmental sustainability and governance. So what this looks like is a lot of green buildings requirements for new properties, carbon emissions requirements, goals, also food waste. For example, Denver County has a new ballot initiative where they're going to be requiring all businesses, all commercial businesses, including hotels, restaurants, to provide composting as well as composting education to all guests. A lot of businesses are already doing this, but what we're seeing is there's a big push around, there's a lack of education around what the properties are already doing in this space, and so we're seeing a lot of mandates come through that may go above and beyond what properties are already doing. Also, I wanted to talk briefly, because I understand that here in Utah, a lot of the economy is, especially the tourism economy, is around national parks. And I know that we're seeing some dips in visitation after some historic highs, and that is the case across the West. Grand Teton, for example, reported that their recreational visits were down 9% through April this year. Yosemite reported a 28% drop during the same time span. And Glacier National Park reported a 22% drop between April 2021 and April 2022. And then lastly, I want to flag that cities and states across the country, including Arizona, Hawaii, and many ski towns like Aspen, Steamboat Springs, Coeur d'Alene, are focusing on how they can level the playing field for tax parity for alternative accommodations, including short-term rentals. And so here in the state of Utah, Representative Musselman is taking the lead on doing some work in that space. UTIA, AHLA, and others are working with the representative to try and create a more level playing field for Utah businesses. And on to the fun stuff. So in August, President Biden signed the Inflation Reduction Act. It was debated for more than a year. It's actually known as the Build Back Better program before it was rebranded. It ultimately came out to be a fully partisan $739 billion spending package. And up there you can see a few things that were included. Oops. What was included in the final bill? Some tax revenue increases, prescription drug pricing reforms, and many climate provisions that aim to decarbonize all sectors of the economy. Three key things that I want to flag for you that were enhanced. These were pre-existing tax credits that were enhanced through the IRA. The energy efficiency commercial buildings tax credit, EV tax credit, and the EV charging station tax credit. And just a note on the EV charging station tax credit, This is moving at the speed of the government, so it'll take a little time to figure out the process for this particular tax credit. But pre-IRA, there was a bipartisan infrastructure law that included a lot of EV charging station funds. It's called the NEVI program. And all 50 US states just finalized their state DOT plans. So if you're interested in installing a charging station on one or more of your properties, I would encourage you to reach out to your state DOT and try to figure out, if there are holes within the state plan, if there's a stretch of highway that doesn't have, somewhere to put a charger, maybe your property can fill that need for the state. So I'd encourage you to reach out and look into what's available in the state of Utah. I want to flag for you that AHLA did some work around the per diem rate, and we did see an increase. So we got it to increase from 96 to 98, and there was an unprecedented change in the rate setting methodology. So just want to flag that for you all. And then earlier this month, this is a relatively new item. The NLRB released a notice of proposed rulemaking to establish a joint employer legal standard. This is dangerous, obviously, for the hotel industry and any franchise owner. So AHLA is working with the International Franchise Association, National Restaurant Association, National Retail Federation to continue to work on this. And I'll flag later for you that we do have a grassroots advocacy program. So if you're interested in following this, we'll get to that point, but you can follow us with Hotels Act. In addition, I want to flag for you, there was a lot of conversation yesterday in a session about H-2B visas. I wish I had more to say. I wish I had more good news. But we know the labor shortage is a big priority for our industry, and we're not alone. We continue to push for a larger immigration reform opportunity. We're also addressing the issue through an H-2B coalition, which we co-chair with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Our efforts have led to that increase in more visas being released earlier this year. We're pushing to allow for a returning workers exemption to expand that cap of 66,000 of H-2Bs annually. Discussions continue, but like I said, I wish I had better news, but that's where things stand. I want to also flag these two campaigns that we've worked on with our foundation. One is the Hospitality is Working campaign. We're trying to shine a light on all the career pathways that are within our industry, especially those that may not require a college degree and are readily available, attractive, pay well, and are ready right now. Also, thehotelindustry.com, very similar, where you can explore 200 career pathways within the industry. In the U.S. Senate, for those who don't know, we are at a 50-50 split. We have 48 Democrats, 2 independents who caucus with the Democrats, and 50 Republicans. And as it stands right now, according to Cook Political Report and Amy Walters of the world, we are still at about a coin flip for who could take control of the U.S. Senate. So maybe Vice President Kamala Harris will continue to be the 51st vote, but that's where things stand right now. In the House, it's a little different. To give you some perspective, the Republicans are largely expected to take the House. Just an example point, of those toss-up races, Republicans need to only win 6 seats in the toss-ups, where Democrats would need to win 26 in order to keep control of the House. So the Republicans are largely expected to take the House. Finally, this is what I mentioned earlier. This is how you can stay engaged with AHLA. This is our grassroots advocacy platform. If you're interested in staying on top of these issues and being more engaged, if you want to pester your members of Congress, we're more than happy to help you do that. And you can also follow us along on Twitter at AHLA Policy. We'd love to have you on board. The more voices, the more collective voice, the stronger our advocacy can be on behalf of the industry. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to grab me after this, but you can also contact me here at mmitten@ahla.com. Thank you all for having me. I hope you have a great rest of your morning. I don't know. All right. I was like, I don't know who's next.
Thank you, Melissa. Good morning. My name's Jennifer, and I'm proud to sponsor this next event with Visit Park City. And for those of you who don't know, this week we recognized World Tourism Day on September 27th. This was created by the United Nations World Tourism Organization, and the mission of World Tourism Day is to raise the global awareness and the impact of tourism, both as an economic driver and to also recognize the potential threat to our communities that fail to manage tourism properly. Their current slogan is Rethinking Tourism, and it seeks to put people and the planet first and bring together government and businesses in the planning process. That's exactly what we're doing in Park City. I'd like to recognize our team who's here today, who's leading that process. We have Laura, Sarah, Morgan, Chad, Dustin, and Kim. Please stand and be recognized for your great work. In the US, when we think of rethinking tourism, we all actually call that sustainable tourism. And just this week, the Park City Chamber of Commerce and Convention and Visitors Bureau unveiled our first sustainable tourism plan. And here's a sneak peek for you.
This land is our heritage and our responsibility, a place we are borrowing from future generations. Ultimately, sustainability is about love and respect for the earth, our community, and our descendants.
Sustainability means living in a way that assures nature is preserved and protected by a community consciously treading lightly.
For example, in a sustainable tourism economy, businesses reduce water and energy use, commit to zero waste, and cut back on carbon emissions.
Sustainability means we offset our economic needs and our environmental impact in everything we do.
For our small town lifestyle to be compatible with tourism, clean, quiet public transit must be easy to use. Recreation should minimize environmental impact, and visitors need to do their part, leaving Park City cleaner than they found it and respecting our residents and neighborhoods.
For community life to be meaningful today and in the future, we must honor our historical heritage, encourage artists, and a creative culture.
We must respect everyone and commit to equity and diversity, and always be ready to help our neighbors.
All of these and much more fall within our goals of sustainable tourism.
Locals and Park City visitors appreciate the kind of quality the Sustainable Tourism Plan reflects, and they are ready to support us in doing the right thing, the sustainable thing. Together, we're going to continue journeying along the right trail.
We know that with great tourism success also comes great civic responsibility. That's why we're rethinking tourism in Summit County to make sure that it benefits all of our communities in the county equitably. From workforce to residents to a wide range of private and public constituents. We are excited to lead in this area, and we know that we have a lot of work ahead, but we also know that we're on the right trail. And you are on the right trail today as we get the opportunity to hear from Stephen Barth. Stephen is the author of Hospitality Law and the co-author of Restaurant Law Basics. He's the founder of HospitalityLawyer.com, the Hospitality Law Conference, and is a professor at the University of Houston. He teaches courses in hospitality and leadership. In addition to his legal and travel risk mitigation insights, he also specializes in communicating the importance of emotional intelligence. His fun and fast-paced presentation, hopefully today, will provide us with some practical information and solutions to enhance both our personal and professional lives. Please join me in welcoming Stephen Barth.
Thank you. Thank you very much. morning, everyone. How are you today? Good? Wow, what a great Hall of Honor. Woo! Those speeches were inspiring and incredible, yes? Who likes music? Anybody like music? So I like to play music when I get started. You hear a little music when I was coming up in my classes back at the university. I like to play a little music. So one morning I was playing Led Zeppelin to an introductory course. These are 18, 19-year-old kids. And had a little Led Zeppelin going, and the girl on the front row was kind of, knocking her head, And I said, oh, you like that? And she goes, dude, that's Led Zeppelin. And I said, oh, my gosh. I said, that's great. I said, your parents must have turned you on to that. She said, no, my grandparents did. Now, she got an F in my class. So. No. And I do want to clear a couple of things up that I heard earlier in the speeches. One, somebody said something about plagiarism. Look, when you steal from one, it's plagiarism. When you steal from many, it's research, right? At least that's how the lawyers do it. And I want to make something absolutely crystal clear. I will not be dancing a ballet up here today. I'm just not going to do it. So, with that, here we go. We're going to talk a little bit about emotional intelligence, but before we get into that, I'm going to have my balancing act going with my microphone and my remote mouse. So if I start speaking in this, somebody raise their hand and remind me that I've got the wrong tool up here. So here we go. First, I want to let everybody know that I had the very good fortune of growing up in Dallas, Texas. I had a very, where? Yeah, okay, well, wow, everybody's moving west. Okay. So grew up, and my best friend's name was Jake. We called his father Mr. Jake. Mr. Jake was a builder. As you can see, he built warehouses. Now, I had the good fortune and privilege of being invited to Mr. Jake's 50th anniversary of building warehouses in Dallas. He had one primary customer. That customer was a gentleman by the name of Trammell Crow. Some of you may know that name. At one time, Mr. Crow was the largest property owner in the United States. At the 50th anniversary for Mr. Jake, Mr. Crow was there to honor him. And he said, in my time with the Crow Company, Mr. Jacobson and his company, McFadden and Miller, have built over 500 warehouses for us. Mr. Crow had a vision. He saw the need for distribution warehousing coming. And he said, people ask me all the time, why has Mr. Jake built all of those warehouses for us? And here's the reason why. He said, he built my first warehouse, and he finished it early. And he sent me an invoice, and we paid him. And a week later, he showed back up into my office, and he handed me a check. And I said, what's this? And Mr. Jake looked at me and he said, we made too much money on this warehouse. And he said, we've done business together for the last 50 years and never had one piece of paper between us. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to share with you that trust matters. Being truthful matters. Doing what you say you're going to do matters. That's an important concept of emotional intelligence. It's an important concept of leadership. Leaders do what they say they're going to do. Leaders are trustworthy. Leaders also put their organization first. They are not self-advancing. They don't take credit for everything. They spread credit around. They recognize the people around them frequently and consistently. We're going to talk today about emotional intelligence. This concept has been around for 2,000 years. It was just coined, the phrase emotional intelligence, recently, about 20 years ago now, by a gentleman by the name of Daniel Goleman. Why does it matter? Why do we want to learn about emotional intelligence? Because we've learned from research, ladies and gentlemen, that up to 75, almost 80% of people's success today in organizations depends upon their emotional intelligence, not their intellect. their emotional intelligence rather than their intellect. So it's absolutely crucial that we think about it, that we understand it, that we recognize the value that it brings to our organizations as well as our families. So before we get started, I'm going to ask everybody a question. How many of you would invest 1 minute a day to change your destiny and that of your children? 1 minute a day. Well, usually I get unanimity, but I'll guess some of you are on your cell phone, so we'll do it. See, now they're looking up. And see, now they're like, oh, yeah, okay, busted. Yeah, right, okay. Yeah, so that's what I'm going to ask you to do when I'm finished today, is devote 1 minute a day to changing your destiny. Got it? Number one. Number two, I'm going to ask you to think a little differently than you did when you sat down in the chair you have. I'm not going to ask for a commitment to think a certain way, just a willingness to think differently. Is that a fair request? All right, then let's crank up. I want to make sure, before we go into the EI concept, that we start thinking a little differently. So I want to start out with this thought about teams. I want to make sure everybody in this room understands what it really means to be on a team. How important are teams and teamwork to your businesses? Raise your hand if it's crucial. Absolutely crucial. I know it is in yours. I heard you talk. Yeah. It's absolutely crucial. But I want to make sure everybody in this room understands what it means to be on a team. So let's pretend that we're back in school, shall we? All right, I'll be the professor. Is that okay with you? All right. Good morning, class. Welcome to, let's call it Tourism 4000. It's an advanced class. So this semester, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to do all of our work in teams. We're going to do our papers in a team. We're going to do our homework in teams. We're going to do a presentation in teams. And oh yeah, we're going to take a midterm exam in here, and we're going to do it as a team. Everybody gets to work together to come up with the best answers for the midterm exam, and everybody gets the score we make on that exam. Who likes that idea? Everybody does? Yeah, okay. There is a caveat, and here's the caveat. We're going to have a final exam in this class. Listen up. This is important. Everybody on the team has to take the exam by themselves. Right? And oh yeah, everybody on that team gets the lowest grade scored by any other member on that team. So just so I'm clear, what is your name, ma'am? Ashley makes 100. You look like a kind of 100. You are? Max? Madison. Madison makes a 90. And Ben, you would never do this, Ben, but Ben would roll in with a 65. What does everybody on that team get on that exam? 65. Who wants to be on that team? See, nobody wants to be on that team, ladies and gentlemen, but that's the team we are on every single minute of every single day at our businesses, in whatever organization we're on. We get the lowest score achieved by any member on our team. Now, if it's 2 weeks before that exam, what am I going to be doing with Ben here? I'm going to have him study. I'm going to help. I'm going to find his strengths, find his weakness. I'm going to focus on his strengths, enforce those, and I'm going to try to shore up his weaknesses. What kind of attitude do I want Ben to have before he takes that exam? Positive. Do I want him to be scared? Do I want him to be worried about his job? No. I want him to be positive, confident. I want him to know that he is the face of this business and we are all right behind him. That's what I want. Ladies and gentlemen, when is our final exam in all of our businesses in Utah? Every single second of every single day. Every time we touch a guest, and since I'm a lawyer, let me clarify that. I'm talking figuratively, not literally there. And I want to give you an example of a person that touched me greatly when I came to Utah on this trip. And that's a woman named Patricia who runs All Save Rent-A-Car at the airport here. This lady is a jewel, and I fully expect her to be in your Hall of Honor one day. Remarkable customer care. Just want to give a shout out to her. Well, I'm at another example in Utah that I will never forget. Who's from Salt Lake City? La Madeleine, the bakery? Have you been? If you haven't been, you need to go. And you need to order the Queen Amman. Not queen. It's a funky word. Queen Amman. They ship them all over the world. If you haven't been there, you need to go. An exceptional experience. They get what it means to be on a team. And now you do as well. Let's talk about organization charts, because in my work over the last 40, 50 years in this industry, I've looked at a lot of org charts. And organization charts almost always, whoops, how did that happen? Almost always look like this. Customers, owners, general managers, supervisors, and employees, except the ones I typically look at don't have customers. Right? Does that look about right? You always have the owners at the top, the GMs, the supervisors, right? Well, another lesson that Mr. Jake taught me is that leaders are the foundation of an organization. Everybody with me? Leaders are the foundation of the organization. They bring the strength, the education, the experience to support. So why in the world would we put the owners on top? And it's because if you go back and look at your org chart, most of you don't have your customers built into your organization chart. And you would never put your customers at the bottom. We'd always put them at the top. But if you do, who interacts with your customers every single minute of every single day? Your employees. Where do they need to be? See, over here, we usually find our employees at the bottom. But I'm here to get you to think differently and to revise your org chart and realize that most of you in this room have worked your entire life to get to the bottom. But that's where good leaders work from. They're the foundation. They're the support. All of you have probably at some time or another built a resort or a hotel. Would you ever put the foundation at the top? Never. You would always put it at the bottom. And that is where effective leaders work from. I had the privilege of listening to Delta Airlines. Well, he was new at the time. It was about 15 years ago. Delta, at the time, had the worst customer service ever. I was on a flight one time. I got upgraded, sitting next to a guy. The flight attendant came over and said, "Will you two be joining us for dinner?" And the guy next to me said, "Well, what are our choices?" And she looked at him and said, "Yes or no?" Yeah. I mean, we used to joke that Delta stood for "Don't ever leave the airport." But he stood up in front of business travel purchasers. This is his primary target market. And he said, "Ladies and gentlemen, we have been wrong at Delta. We've been wrong for the last 40 years because we've been focusing on you, our customers, and we haven't paid enough attention to our employees." He said, "Starting today, we're going to put our employees at the top." Where is Delta now in terms of customer service? All the way at the top. It's not magic. It's just a matter of thinking differently and be a willingness as a leader to work from the bottom up. How many of you would like to have engaged, productive, and committed employees? Raise your hand. It's a rhetorical question. I know all of you would, right? Everybody was. Just so we're clear, there's a difference between engaged or involved and committed, right? We're looking for commitment. Yes. In the concept of bacon and eggs, the hen is involved, but the hog is committed. See the difference? Oh, you liked that one, didn't you? Okay, I'm glad. All right. So to get there, a group that wrote a book called The Carrot Principle, they did a study. A survey was done of 200,000 employees. And they asked the employees, what does it take for you to be engaged, productive, and committed? And this is what they said. They said, look, first we need high levels of direction. How do we give direction in our businesses? Mission statement, goals. You need mission statement and goals in every business org. High levels of communication. Your employees want to know what's going on. High levels of trust. They want you to do what you say you're going to do. If you make a mistake, they want you to own it. They don't want you to blame somebody else. Last but not least, listen to this. Your employees want you to hold them accountable. Good employees like to work with other good employees. How many of you have worked with people that weren't held accountable in your organization or in the classroom? Raise your hand. And how did you feel about that? You didn't like that, did you? And most of you probably left that organization and went to work someplace else. If you're not holding the employees accountable around your good employees, who are you going to end up with? All the bad ones. So this is a lesson. I hope you'll take it away. High levels of direction, communication, trust, and accountability. And you know what else they discovered? They discovered organizations that had these 4 qualities, ladies and gentlemen, had a higher ROI than organizations that were missing 1 or more. Higher ROI. And how much do these 4 cost? A little time. A little time, a little thinking differently, and you get a higher ROI. Now, what's really cool about this study is the authors thought to themselves, hey, wait, there's an anomaly here. There's several companies in this study that have an even greater ROI. I wonder if there's a common denominator for those companies. And there was. And it's driving an even greater ROI. You start with these 4 ingredients, and you add this into the mix, higher levels of praise and recognition. It was so powerful. It drove so much more ROI that they labeled it the accelerant. It's like Red Bull. Now, I know you're asking, dude, we're supposed to be talking about emotional intelligence. Exactly. Here's what I want you to recognize. We now know through this research that praise and recognition drives a higher rate of ROI, which everybody in the room wants. We also know from the work of Daniel Goleman, who I showed you earlier, who wrote the book on emotional intelligence, we know that people with higher levels of emotional intelligence deliver higher levels of praise and recognition. So if A equals B and B equals C, what also has to be true? Yes, sir. That's why you're in the Hall of Honor. He goes, if A equals B and B equals C, A also has to equal C. So by that logic, higher levels of emotional intelligence equals higher ROI. And that's what organizations are discovering throughout the world, and that's why they're devoting time and energy to understanding emotional intelligence. Let's find out what it is, what it's all about. So first of all, take a look at this comic strip, if you will. Some of you have probably had this experience. It's all about self-awareness. How many of you have realized that the people that don't get that they don't get it? Yeah? Do we all have blind spots? Is that fair? Sure. We all have blind spots, and I'm going to point out a few as we go forward. But it starts, the fundamentals of emotional intelligence are all about understanding who we are and what our triggers are. So for instance, I know the first time I came to Salt Lake City, it was so kind of calm and laid back. Matter of fact, I crossed the street. I was going to cross the street in Salt Lake City, and the blocks are like 10 miles long. And so I thought, really? Do I have to go all the way down to the light? And I saw somebody, what we would call in Texas, jaywalking, right? Where you kind of go. And I thought, oh, that doesn't look safe or promising. But I stepped to the curb. Cars, trucks, everybody stopped. And I thought, whoa. Even a semi-truck stopped. And I kind of put my foot out, because I wanted to be sure they weren't baiting me to walk across the street and get run over. That's what they do in Houston, right? And I'm like, okay. And I walked across the street. It was like the parting of the Red Sea. And it sounds like I'm telling Noah about the flood in here. And I was like, oh my gosh. I said, that's amazing, right? It's crazy. But how many of you, sometimes, you drive down the road, because if you drive in Houston, you deserve combat pay. So we get this all the time, but we get people that get angry on the road. Anybody in here gets angry, frustrated with people on the road? Yeah, sometimes that happens to the best of us, right? Here's the question, though. When we get angry at somebody on the road, we're allowing a stranger that we've never met before, we're never going to meet again unless we chase them down. We're never going to see them again, and we let them disrupt our peace because we're not willing to step back and see what's going on here. Here's the question you have to ask yourself. Can anyone make you angry? It's a trick question, Madison. The answer is no. I knew you knew that. It was on the tip of your tongue. The answer is no. Nobody can make you angry unless what? Unless you let them. Can anybody make you frustrated? No, unless you let them. Because, ladies and gentlemen, if your responses to that are yes, who are you giving your emotional power to? Everybody else but you. And emotional intelligence is all about owning your emotional power and managing it differently than perhaps you have until today. And the cool thing about emotional intelligence, as opposed to intellect, our intellect, you're not going to like hearing this, but our intellect tends to peak at about 13. Doesn't mean we don't keep learning some things, but our capacity in the intellectual establishment peaks about 13. Emotional intelligence, you can continue to grow that for the rest of your life. Another reason to focus on EI, right? So self-awareness, our emotions, our reactions are crucial for understanding how to transition to a greater level of emotional intelligence in your life and in your leadership role, right? Because emotional intelligence is all about transitioning from being reactive to being proactive. From being reactive to being proactive. I'll give you some more examples in a moment. So it's all about self-management. So your emotions do not interfere with progress. If you get upset driving down the freeway and you begin to yell, well, hold on. How many of you have ever been cut off on the freeway? Raise your hand. And what was your first reaction? No sign language, please. Right? You get upset. But here's the question I'll ask you. If you don't react to that, what happened? Somebody say nothing. Nothing happened. You get to go on with your peace, your productivity. You go on with your day. Do you see that? That's the power of emotional intelligence. That's the power of understanding that you own that power. You get to decide. But you have to practice it. That's where the 1 minute a day comes in. This is crucial. Emotions do not interfere with progress. We want you to be proactive rather than reactive, and we want you to be resilient. We want you to recover from emotional distress quickly. Quickly. Ladies and gentlemen, it's never about how far you fall that matters. It's always about how high you bounce. Things will go wrong. Some days you're the dog, some days you're the fire hydrant. That was funny. You guys got to laugh. I know you got a sense of humor in Utah. I know you do. But that's the case. You've got to recognize that we have to recover from emotional distress. How many have ever given somebody the cold shoulder or the silent treatment? Come on, raise your hand. I know you have. That's all about not getting your way. That's all about not getting what you want. And then you retaliate by not speaking to somebody or giving them the cold shoulder. I had a lady one time come up to me. She goes, "Young man," I was very flattered. I said, "Yeah." She got my attention. She said, "I want you to know something." I said, "What's that?" She goes, "I gave my husband the silent treatment for about 20 years until I found out that he liked it." You just have to realize, though, those types of things we are not recovering quickly from emotional distress. We're just not. And you have to realize that that's part of emotional intelligence, is putting things behind you and continuing to be productive. Now, I'm not asking you to become emotional robots. That's just the opposite. I'm asking you to feel your emotions and feel them deeply. I'm just asking you to respond to them differently than perhaps you have so far. It's all about being self-motivated, taking initiative, constant progress, being curious. Ladies and gentlemen, when you hire people today, you're looking for people that are resilient. The one question I ask in every interview when I hire somebody, give me a time in your life that didn't go so well and let me know how it turned out for you. I want to know how you manage that. I want to know if you're resilient. I want to know if you have grit. I want to know if you have perseverance. I want to know that you know that tough times will come. In our business, challenges can arise, and I need to know you can handle that. I want to know if you're resilient, but I also want to know if you're innovative. You know those people in your organization that are always going, how come we're not doing this? Why don't we do this? Let's do this. Let's try this. You know those people? And you're like, oh, please, go somewhere else. Those are the people we want. Those are the people that care. They care enough to think about your business, to share their ideas with you. Those are the people that we want. And then finally, of the 4 components, there's empathy. Empathy is about listening and understanding others' point of view. You can see in the image. To put it a different way, empathy is like looking at a shredded chicken salad from the chicken's perspective. Too much? Yeah. Let me give you a different visual. Okay, who remembers the Titanic? Not the movie. I know you guys are all going, ooh, Leonardo. No, but that's what she was thinking right there. She's like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I was thinking. So, but look, we look at the Titanic as a disaster. Hundreds of human beings died. It was horrible, right, when that ship struck that iceberg. But if you put yourself in the perspective of the lobster in the kitchen, when that iceberg struck that ship and the water came rushing in, that had to be the best damn day of that lobster's life. And all we did was shift the way we look at things. There is nothing more valuable in the world today than empathy. A willingness to look at things from a different perspective. A willingness to listen empathically. Listen to how what somebody's telling you impacts them rather than how what somebody's telling you impacts you. That's that egocentric interpretation that we talked about earlier and will again. I want to share a story with you to emphasize the power of listening empathically and having empathy in your life. About 25 years ago, I was doing a talk for all the Hilton food and beverage directors in the country at the time. There were about 75 of them. They were in a classroom at our hotel school, and we were all talking about communication and leadership, and I brought up listening, and there was a fellow in the back of the room that was a little older than anybody else. He sat on the back row. He hadn't said a word, and he raised his hand, and he said, I have something I'd like to say about this. And he stood up, and I sat down. And this is what he told the audience. He said, ladies and gentlemen, I'm the food and beverage director at the Waldorf Astoria Hotel in New York City. It's over 2,000 guest rooms. It's operated with a union contract, a collective bargaining agreement. He said, it's a bear to operate. He said, I've been there 25 years, and we've had a sous chef, an assistant chef, that's been there for 30 years. And all this fellow ever wanted to be in his career was the best sous chef he could be, and he is damn good. And because he's been there 30 years and because of the collective bargaining agreement, this sous chef has been able to hold off Sundays and Mondays every single week for his entire 30-year career at our hotel. That's impossible. He said, and we've gone to this sous chef when we've been overbooked and understaffed and asked him, can you be a little flexible, chef, this week? Come in and work for us. Not one time since I've been there has the sous chef ever accommodated our request to change his schedule. Well, about 3 weeks ago, We were overbooked, understaffed. I had a Monday morning event. I had to have a chef on the line because we were doing a breakfast buffet and it was eggs to order. I had to have a chef. I'd gone to every temp agency in the city. I'd gone to every department head at the hotel. Nobody was available. The only person left, the sous chef. And I dreaded going to him, but I didn't have a choice. And here's how it went. Chef, can you come in and help me out Monday morning? Sorry, I can't help you. Chef, you didn't even think about it. I don't have to think about it. I can't help you out Monday morning. Chef, I'll tell you what, I'll give you 2 extra days off during the week if you'll just come in to help me out Monday morning for a couple of hours. He said, I can't help you. I'm sorry, I can't be here Monday. He said, Chef, you didn't even think about it. He said, dude, I don't have to think about it. I can't be here Monday morning. And the food and beverage director said, Chef, this time I have to understand why not. And this is what the sous chef told him. He said, well, since you asked, he said, I have a son, he's a quadriplegic. He said, he was born that way. He said, I take Sundays off because those are the days that my entire family comes home to spend with my son. He said, they're unbelievable days for this child. And he said, I take Mondays off because those are my day with my son. And I wouldn't give those up for anything in the world, certainly not just an extra 2 days off during the week. And he said, and this Monday, I finally saved up enough money to buy him a motorized wheelchair, and I'm supposed to pick it up on Monday. So I'm sorry, I can't be here. Food and beverage director stopped. He looked at all the other food and beverage directors in the room, and he said, ladies and gentlemen, that was a Thursday. He said, Friday morning, I'm sitting in my office. I got my feet up on my desk. The door's open. I'm trying to figure out what in the world am I going to do for Monday morning. It's a knock at the door. He looks up. It's the sous chef. He said the sous chef didn't say good morning, hi, hello, nada. He just looked at him and said, what time do you want me to be here Monday morning? And I said, no way, chef, you need to pick up the wheelchair. He said, I've arranged for my brother to pick up the wheelchair. What time do you want me to be here Monday morning? And the F&B director stopped then, and of course he had everybody's attention, and he said, ladies and gentlemen, the only thing that I did different in 25 years was I listened to what was important to him rather than telling him what was important to me. I can't give you a more powerful tool in your toolbox than to learn to listen empathically. It will change your world. It will change the people's or in your organization, their world. Most importantly, it will change the world of your children. And that's why we think emotional intelligence can change destiny. I've been doing this a long time. It's the only thing I've found that I have a great deal of confidence that I can share with people and honestly say, this has the power to change your destiny. Because ladies and gentlemen, most people I know only have one tool in their toolbox, and it's usually a hammer. And if the only tool you have in your toolbox is a hammer, every situation you come up against pretty much looks like a nail, right? And we've got to shift the way we think and our perspective and our ability to listen and give people time. Yeah? How many of you, well, and the reason we have to do this is because the world's kind of gone crazy. How many of you think the world's a little crazy? The world's a little crazy? Ben's like, dude, the world's way crazy. Ben, I don't know how old you are, but when I was in high school, the world was pretty much boring and normal. Fair? It was so boring and normal that all my friends used to have to take LSD to make it weird and crazy. My friends, thank you. But now the world is so weird and crazy on its own, those same friends are all having to take Prozac to make it more boring and normal. It's kind of a crazy time. All right, so those are the fundamentals of emotional intelligence. Let's learn a little more about it. Remember, when we talk about empathy and listening, are we filtering what we see and hear through our egocentric, self-absorbed lens, or are we listening through our authentic, empathic lens? A crucial question to ask yourself when you're doing your self-awareness evaluation. Emotional competence is ultimately all about relationship management, building a consensus, negotiating. It's an incredible toolkit to help you drive success in any organization, but also how to interact with your employees, but also how to interact with your family. Because higher levels of emotional intelligence will give you the ability to solve conflict peacefully and effectively. How many of you would like to learn how to do that early on in your lifetime? I can tell you I did. Yeah. So let me go back to driving your car. If you're getting upset on the freeway and yelling at screaming people, we've kind of figured out that that's probably your conflict resolution style. So another reason to think about this, all right? Listen, every relationship has conflict. Every relationship has conflict, but successful relationships have the ability to solve conflict peacefully. Another thought about solving conflict. Solving conflict, ladies and gentlemen, is not about being right. It's not about winning. If you get into conflict with somebody and the first thing you do is look for an email or a text to prove a fact, you've been watching way too much CSI. And you're not trying to solve the conflict, you're trying to be right. Solving conflict is about creating a solution that's good for everybody involved, not just you. If you're trying to win or be right, your ego needs a check. Emotional intelligence gives us the ability to influence, to inspire, to disagree without being disagreeable. I encourage everybody to try to adopt that. And if you don't remember anything else from today, remember this. People with higher levels of emotional intelligence can apologize. And let me tell you why. An apology means that you value the relationship more than you do your ego. An apology means that you value the relationship more than you do your ego. Whether it's with a child, whether it's with a customer, whether it's with an employee, you need to learn to apologize, and sincerely. I had a guy at a talk I was doing not too long ago, and he said, wait! He goes, my stepson, when he apologizes, is not sincere. I said, how do you know that? He said, well, he just says, my bad. I said, dude, that's how everybody in that generation apologizes. But hey, they own it. They get it, right? It's not like what we used to do. It's like, I didn't do it. Right? It's that song Shaggy, wasn't me. Right? And so they've cut to the chase. They're like, my bad. It's totally sincere. They get it. They're just not going to dwell on it. And you don't need to punish them over it. Just say, well, okay, great. Thanks for recognizing that, and let's do something different in the future. That sounds good. Let's move on. Rather than giving somebody the cold shoulder or the silent treatment for 2 days. Right? Because that's all about control and retaliating because we didn't get our way. Learn to apologize sincerely, but always because it means you value the relationship more than you do your ego. I have a friend out in California. 2 things about my friend Mark out in California. First of all, he's been trying for 50 years to teach people in California how to drive. His wife calls me once a month and says, you've got to talk to my husband again. I said, is he still trying to teach people how to drive? I go, yeah. I said, did he ever join the Department of Public Safety? No. He's just driving down at the road, screaming at people. And I call Mark and I go, Mark, what are you doing, dude? He goes, somebody has to teach him. I said, Mark, you've been doing this 50 years. He goes, yeah, that's about right. I said, did you yell at people today? He goes, yes. The people that don't get it don't get that they don't get it, right? You're not having an impact, my friend. If you want to have an impact, take a different career, right, in the business of teaching people how to drive. So the other thing that Mark was challenged with, and Mark, he tries really hard. He does the best he can, which is what everybody does. And Mark, still to this day, is getting better and better, but he had a challenge with his younger son. And his younger son brought some things up to his dad's attention that he didn't appreciate that was going on when he was growing up. And his dad would not apologize. And the kid made it clear that he wanted an apology. And Mark called me, he said, what should I do? I said, you need to apologize. Kid's telling you what he needs, what he wants. You've got to deliver. And his ego would not let him apologize. So fast forward 5 years later, Mark finally apologized because they didn't speak for 5 years. So what finally happened? Mark apologized, and now their relationship is fantastic. But when somebody tells you what they need, often it's a good time to deliver. Yeah. All right, so let me just walk through some things where we see challenges with our emotions. We feel challenged, insulted. You guys look at these images, they're good. Threatened, disappointed, humiliated, fear, guilt, look at the mirror. Woo! Insecurity. I love this one. Jealousy. Reminds me of our gang. You guys remember that? Frustration. Oh, wait. How many of you have thrown your computer out the window? Or hit your computer? I know people throwing their computer out the window. I'm like, dude, all right, so now you're angry and you don't have your computer. What good did that do? It's like in a restaurant when people are hungry and the server isn't there, lickety-split, and they get angry. I said, now you're hungry and angry. In Texas, we call that hangry. Right, out here too? Yeah, you're like, okay, but what good does that do you? Yeah. Nothing. Okay, embarrassment, outrage, anger. Right, all of these emotions are flowing through us, and they're around us for sure. And here's what happens, though. We default to our negative reactions, which is what we've always done our entire life. And we waste all this emotional energy, whether it's in our car, in the workspace, with our families, whatever it is. And what we have to realize is that our brain is our hardware, but our subconscious, where all these little default negative reactions sit, that's our software. Back in the day when we had software loaded on our PCs and desktops, if a virus popped up, what would you do immediately? You'd clean it out, wouldn't you? You wouldn't let it sit on there to infect everything else, but that's what we do every single day when we allow these default negative reactions to stay in our subconscious. If our car breaks, we take it to a mechanic. If our body breaks, we go to a doctor, but we rarely take the time to diagnose and clean out all the viruses, these default negative reactions that are going on in our subconscious. And that's what emotional intelligence is all about. And that's the 1 minute a day investment I want you to do, is to re-script your subconscious. And I've given you the script. I've given you your goals, and I've given you the script. And I'm going to give you a QR code to access them when we're finished. And that's what I want you to focus on. Because 1 minute a day, as I mentioned, will change your destiny. How many of you have ever seen somebody throw a fit? Okay. How many of you have ever seen a baby not get their way? What do? Come on. They throw a fit, right? They throw a fit. Da-da-da-da-da-da. How many of you know adults that react the exact same way when they don't get their way? Yeah. Now look, arguably for that baby, because they don't have context, that's arguably the worst damn day of their life, is when the pacifier fell out of their mouth, right? But for an adult, we have context, right? We know that just because somebody touched the back of our car, that's not the worst day I'm ever going to have. Far from it. And yet we know people that explode and go crazy over things like that, right? Got to think differently. We got to see how we react, and we have to understand that that's disrupting our peace. We've talked about driving. Remember this. If you don't react to somebody cutting you off or doing something you don't like on the road, what happened? Nothing happened. You get to go on with your peace and productivity. That is power. That is value. If you react, you're giving all that away to somebody else. Stop doing that. Here we go. Now we finish up this exceptional conference that Natalie and her team have put on for you, and you go back to your hotels and your offices, and you walk into the break room or school, and 3 people are in there whispering, giggling, and laughing, and you walk in, and there's dead silence. What's the first thing that goes through your mind? Yeah, they're talking about me. That's that egocentric mind we have, right, that I mentioned. How big does our ego have to be to think that out of 6 billion people in the world, those 3 people have nothing better to do than to talk about you? And yet, where does our egocentric mind take us? To that exact point. And then that's not enough that we have that moment. We spend the rest of the day trying to figure out what they were talking about. We send them a text or an email. Hey, saw you guys in the break room. That looked like fun. What was that about? People with higher levels of emotional intelligence, they realize even if they are talking about you, which the odds are they're not, but there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. And second, people with higher levels of EI, they know that when people stop talking about you is when you need to worry about it. Because if people aren't talking about you, what are you doing? Nothing. Like that. See, that word comes back every now and then. All right. So you can apply EI to leadership. You can apply it to team dynamics. You can apply it to conflict resolution like we did. You can check out customer service and customer care because the empathy component is what drives customer experiences today. I'll give you an example of customer experience. How many of you sometime today are going to say, Google it? Right? Google gets it. But I'll bet you've never in your life told somebody to Yahoo it. Never. See the difference? How many of you would jump off a cliff if Starbucks goes out of business tomorrow? Oh, Utah's not a Starbucks community. Never mind, strike that. I'll come back with another one another time. I'm going to tell you I knew that, was just testing you, but maybe not. Oh, we got one in the back. Thank you for validating that. Oh, no, it was something else? Oh, okay. All right, but it's all about personal interactions as well. And look, we're naturally reactionary, right? All of us are. Some of you are out there very zen. That's okay, but everybody else kind of like, lots of anxiety going around. And our environment is often negative and stressful. We've got emotional stress. We've got job stress. Children, can they be stressful? Woo! I got one. She's now 37. Sheesh. Do they ever go off your payroll? Never. I was hoping for better news. No, that's your daughter right there. Yeah. Yeah, my daughter and I learned this early on. We were sitting in the living room, and I was a single father, and I'm making dinner, and my daughter's watching television. This was many years ago, and I noticed the channel hadn't changed. And I said, hey, what are you doing? She goes, duh, I'm watching TV. Right. I said, well, but you don't typically sit through the commercials. She said, well, I can't find the remote. I said, well, why don't you get up and change the channel? She goes, why don't you buy another remote? I said, Alexandra, I can't believe you just said that. She goes, what are you talking about? I said, well, because I did something then that I swore I'd never do. I said, because when I was your age, I was the remote control. You guys remember that, right? My dad would say, we only had 3 channels. But when it was time to change the channel, he'd say, get them, change the channel. And he said, and bring me a Budweiser. And that's when I got into the hospitality business. That was the first time. Technology will make you crazy. It's great. I love it. I love what technology is doing for us. The gentleman that gave the talk earlier about the media and all those options today, how cool is that stuff? Who thought today, the guy practicing law, that I used to have to take an extra suitcase around for my files and my books, now I can just travel with an iPad, a tablet, that has everything I've ever needed in my life in it. It's amazing. As he said, let's never take it for granted, and I hope we never do, and I hope for those of you in the younger generation, you never take it for granted either, because it is a remarkable what's going on. It's just so fun to see. And then employees can create stress, for sure, I know. And just one last thing about employees. How many of you are testing for drugs? Your employee, nobody's raising their hand. I got one guy back there. Yeah, because I was talking to a bunch of ski resort operators not long ago. And I said, if you put a sign up that says we test for drugs, it'll weed out a lot of people. This guy in the back starts laughing. I said, what's so funny? He goes, dude, I have to put a sign up that says we never test for drugs. Or I wouldn't have any employees. And then you couple that fact with people are normal until you get to know them, right? What I like to say, though, is people are normal until they check into a hotel, right? I was getting interviewed by the Washington Post one time. He goes, what do you mean by that? I go, what do you mean what do I mean? He goes, what do you mean? I go, what I mean is when you go stay at a friend's house, do you walk out with a shampoo and conditioner? I said, do you jump up and down on the bed drunk? I said, do you steal the robe? I had a friend one time, he came downstairs from his hotel room and his suitcase was overstuffed. And I said, how was your stay in the hotel, was it comfy? He goes, oh, it was so comfortable. As a matter of fact, the towels were so fluffy, I could hardly get them in my suitcase. I mean, it's different. And then the dean, the interview lasted an hour with the Washington Post, and that's the only quote they use. The people are normal until they check them in a hotel, and the dean called me in his office. He goes, really? He goes, that's what you shared with them? Oh, no, it's not good. Not good. Then you've got toxic people, right? Everybody knows toxic people are always negative, that don't see the good things in life. There's a lack of respect. Look at this, cutting in line. That's about a lack of respect for other people's time. You got smoking. This is my big one. I'm a big anti-smoke, anti-vape. I just don't like it, and I think that people do it around other people. I think that's a lack of respect for other people's necessity to breathe fresh air. So I was big back in the day getting Weston to go smoke, not me, just me, but I played a role of trying to get hotels to go smoke-free, trying to get airports to go totally smoke-free, inside and outside. Vaping is all chemicals, just like cigarette smoke. It's awful, and they've addicted children, and I absolutely hate it. And so when I talk about this, and I go on these rants, as you can tell, and I say to people, I said, you know, because I got asked to speak to the Houston City Council about this, and they said, what's wrong with smoking sections? And I said, ladies and gentlemen, having a smoking section in a restaurant is like having a peeing section in a swimming pool. Right? You think about it. And who would get in that water? Nobody would get in that water. Nobody would. Right? And people say, oh, really? You mind a little smoke? Well, not if you mind a little pee. I don't mind. And they say, well, you're not comparing apples to apples. I'm like, dude, what are you talking about? I said, the pee is much less offensive and destructive than the smoke. Much less. He's like, huh. I said, well, yeah. And then, you know, I tell him, he goes, well, explain that to me. I said, well, come on. If somebody's smoking around you, that smoke is going in your ears, your eyes, your mouth, getting on your clothes, your skin, etc. He goes, yeah, that's true. He goes, well, what about when you pee? I said, well, I don't know about anybody else, but my mother raised 4 boys. We could hit a Cheerio from 6 feet, right? So think differently about this. And the lack of respect, littering is totally a lack of respect. Being routinely late. It's not punishing people for being late. It's about understanding that it's a lack of respect for other people. Yeah? Discrimination, harassment. It's sad that the wealthiest country in the world has to have laws like the Americans with Disabilities Act or anti-sexual harassment laws or anti-discrimination laws, because all this is a lack of respect for humanity. That's all it is. So it's really, hopefully, we can continue to drive greater respect for others. And so look, if you have these toxic people, lack of respect, snap judgment, stressful environment, all that leads to very challenging decisions that we make. And we have to begin to do things differently, ladies and gentlemen. If you need another example, how many of you have ever gone to, how many of you know people whose entire emotional demeanor lives and dies by the success or failure of a sports team? You see? I have some witnesses here. And you have to realize that that's a fantasy. Sports, professional sports is a fantasy. Baseball, bear with me, you statistical gurus out there. But baseball, we pay a guy $100 million a year. And 2 out of 3 times, what does he do when he gets up to do his job? He strikes out, he fails. How many of you would get to keep your job if you failed at it 66% of the time? Nobody would. And yet we pay these people $100 million a year, and we can't pay school teachers enough money to live on, right? Our priorities are out of whack. Our emotional intelligence is at an all-time low. If you really want to see this in practice, go to a children's sporting event. You get parents yelling and screaming at an umpire or referee that's getting paid $9 an hour to babysit 50 9-year-old kids. They should be praising this person. They should be washing their car. And yet they yell and scream like this is a professional umpire referee. Those people have been watching way too much SportsCenter. Resentment and grudges, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to let those go. Holding on to things and carrying a grudge against people is like drinking poison and hoping the other person dies. It's the most lopsided win-lose proposition humans have ever discovered, and I know people that continue to do it every single day and drink that poison. First time I ever gave this talk, about 20 years ago now, a lady came up to me. She's a little older, much older. She was 80 years old because she told me. And she said, I want you to know today I forgive my parents. Today. And I was grateful for that, but I was also sad for that because it took her that long to let that go, right? Everybody in the world does the very best they can do at the time, ladies and gentlemen. Your parents, you, everybody. Give some people some grace. It will come back in droves to you. So, to wrap up, and once I tell you this story, I'm going to leave you with a QR code that will take you to your homework should you decide to do it. One are your goals to becoming more emotional intelligent. The other is your script that I'd like for you to review. Take you 30 seconds at night before you go to bed and 30 seconds in the morning to start your day. Okay? So they're just little affirmations about how to set your intentionality, about how you want to proceed in your life and to help you re-script your subconscious. So, anybody familiar with Jerry Clower? You like him? Kinda. He was a great comedian, clean comedian, so I like him a lot. So here's what happened. This is all about thinking about things differently, trying to understand other people's place in life. So when I started teaching about, a little over 30 years ago now, I got a phone call. And it was a guy that owned about 15 hotels across Texas. And he said, hey, we understand that you can talk to us about legal compliance. And I said, yeah, I'm happy to. And he said, great, I'd like to hire you to come to each one of our hotels and talk to the teams at those hotels about legal compliance. And I said, sure. I said, tell me where I fly into. He goes, that's kind of the issue. He goes, there aren't airports near our properties. They're all resorts and areas that are away from cities. He said, how about if I hire you a driver and we'll bring you to one, you stay the night, enjoy our hospitality, and then you go to the next one, then you go to the next one, and we'll do all 15. He said, how's that sound? I said, that's great. So the first couple of days before the first one comes, the driver shows up, very nice young man, and he introduced himself. I introduced myself, and I said, where do you want me to sit? He goes, well, sit in the back. He goes, you've earned it. I said, okay, thanks. So I'll sit in the back. So we're driving around. We get to the first hotel. I meet everybody. I do the talk. Go to the second one. I meet everybody. I do the talk. Third one, da-da-da-da. And it keeps going just like that. And he and I are getting to know each other, and we were having the best time till about the 10th hotel. After that, we pull over to get some gas, and he's got the gas thing going, and he leans in the back window, and he says, Professor? And I said, yes. He said, there's no fairness in this world. I said, I don't understand. What do you mean? He said, well, I heard that you're getting paid a whole lot of money to do these talks, and they're not paying me squat to drive you around to them. I said, well, that's probably because, I've got this degree. And he goes, don't talk to me about that. He goes, I've listened to you give this talk now 10 times. He said, I've memorized it, and I can give the talk better than you can, and I'm making nickels and dimes. And I said, well, again, that's because he goes, stop it. I'm just telling you that I can deliver this speech and this presentation better than you can, and they're not paying me anything. That's not fair. And I said, I'll tell you what, dude. I said, if you really think you can give this talk better than I can, this is before the internet, right? Before cell phones, for any of that. He goes, they don't know who I am. They've never seen my picture at this next hotel. You just put my jacket on, and you go up there and you give the speech, and I'll sit in the back and just watch you make a fool out of yourself. He goes, bet accepted. Well, we pull up. Nobody knew who I was. I put on his little attire, and I sat in the back row. He put on my suit jacket, and he got up on the front. Ladies and gentlemen, he gave one of the best presentations I have ever seen. It was incredible. Everybody was clapping, cheering. I was like, oh my God, that was good. Well, the GM of the hotel walked up to say thank you, and when he did, he realized they had about 5 minutes. And he said, well, folks, we've got about 5 minutes. Would anybody like to ask any questions? Well, there's one young guy in the front row. You know how that works. And he raised his hand, and he said, yeah. He said, what do you got? He said, Professor, if there was a death in our swimming pool, and the hotel was operated by a management company that was hired by an ownership group that was overseen by an asset management company, and the franchisor and the franchisee were also sued. He said, Professor, who ultimately would be liable to the estate of the deceased? And the professor just looked at the kid that asked the question. And he said, young man, that has to be the simplest question anybody has ever asked me. He said, as a matter of fact, it's so simple, my chauffeur's on the back row. I'm going to ask him to stand up and answer that question. That's how I got started. So here are your QR codes if you're interested. I think you can find them from there. Thank you very much, Natalie and your team, for having me out. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Go Utah. Go to La Madeleine and get a Queen Amman. Say hello to Patricia at All Save. And thanks to my boys, Elliot. Hold on, don't tell me. Elliot, don't tell me. Damn, Britton. Where's Britton? Britton's there. And Colby. I got it. Couldn't do it without you guys. Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody. Hope to see you again. Oh, you looking for this?
I'm next.
Oh.
Is this working? Is this good? Hi. Wasn't that amazing? Give him another round of applause. I know some of you in this room, but not all. I'm Crystal Young. I am the Executive Director of Utah Cultural Alliance. We are the industry association for arts and entertainment. We have a board member in the room, Pat Holmes. I want to give her a big shout out. We just want to say hi to all of you that we love partnering with tourism because our symbiotic sister agency, sister industries, have a common vision. And I think that common vision is we want more people to come to this state, stay longer, spend more money, be responsible tourists. And we know our cultural assets can be just as good at attracting these kinds of visitors as all of our wonderful wilderness around us. And so we just wanted to take this opportunity to talk to you and let you know that I would love to come and talk to you about your local cultural assets. In fact, I would love to hear some of y'all to shout out some in your area. Don't be shy. Utah County, name a cultural asset in Utah County. Cedar, Hale Center Theater Orem, yeah. What else? The Monarch, I love the Monarch. Great in Ogden. Eccles Theater, I go all the time. And you can get White Claws now, it's exciting. Okay, what else? One more. Do you know we have one of the most famous pieces of land art in the world right here in Utah? Spiral Jetty. Yeah. It attracts an incredible amount of visitors. One last asset I want to let you know about is one of our programs is now playing Utah. It gets about 3 million unique visitors a year. We've actually had a 2,707% increase in ticket buyouts since 2017 on that website, and it's a great resource to let visitors know what's happening in your community. And with that, speaking of our wonderful cultural assets, I'd like to welcome the Rural Utah Film Commission to the stage.
Is this one on? That works. I'm not the Rural Utah Film Commission. My name's Travis Campbell. I'm the Economic Development Director for UNA County. And the coalition asked me to get up and say a few things about them before we go into the networking break. They're our break sponsor today. So if you don't know about the coalition, they're a group of rural county officials who are united around this conviction that film production and television production creates real and meaningful economic opportunities in our communities. They strongly support policies that build a robust and enduring film and television industry here in Utah, especially in our rural areas. So the coalition has been very active this past year in the legislative process, and they're very proud to play a key role in a new rural Utah film incentive. And I think with this crowd, it's worth noting that studies show that film does play there's a critical component to driving tourism to the state, and hopeful that we'll have more opportunities into the future for more film and television. So on behalf of UNA County and the Rural Utah Film Coalition, thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of this event here in Vernal. And if you have any questions or want to learn more about the coalition, you can visit their website at rufc.org. Again, that one's rufc.org. So with that, we'll break for our networking break. Enjoy the mixed drink bar back in the networking lounge, and enjoy your day. Thanks.